Prelude. Most transition stories begin with dress-up or childhood longing. Mine was a big black linebacker.
I used to think that sentence as a joke. Now, years later, sitting at the vanity with my mascara wand poised midair and our wedding photo in its frame staring back at me, I know it's the truest thing I've ever written. Most of the women I've met through clinics and support groups trace their beginnings to girlhood. Stolen dresses, secret names written in the margins of notebooks, prayers whispered into pillows. I had those moments too, flickering and fragile. But they never felt solid enough to stand on. They felt like shame. A little quirk or kink about me I could file away under private. David was, however, anything but little. David was 6'4" of unapologetic gravity, shoulder pads in high school that made him look mythic, a body built for impact, a laugh that shook locker room tiles. When he walked down a hallway, people parted without realizing they were doing it. I had loved him before I understood the word love. Not romantically, not consciously. I just orbited him. Back then, I thought I wanted to be him. It took me years to understand I wanted to be wanted by him. And when that finally happened, when our worlds collided, the force cracked open more than my sexuality. It split my life and identity cleanly in two, before linebacker and after linebacker.
Act 1. The bar smelled like stale beer and memory.
It was one of those places that hadn't updated its decor since we graduated. Sticky floors, neon signs buzzing faintly, a jukebox that still played early 2000s anthems like they were sacred texts. I almost didn't recognize him at first. He was leaning against the bar, shoulders impossibly wide beneath a fitted t-shirt, wedding ring glinting as he lifted his glass. The same posture he'd had at 17, like the world was something to brace against and conquer. When he saw me, his face split into that familiar grin.
Jesse, no way.
He hugged me before I could prepare for it. His arms wrapped around me and lifted me clean off the floor for a second, just like he used to after games. My body reacted before my mind did. I melted into him. I had always been small next to him. Slim, softer. In high school, it made me feel inadequate. That night, it made me feel delicate. We talked for hours. Or maybe it was only one. Time warped under the weight of nostalgia. He told stories about work, about his wife, about the pressure of professional sport. I told him about my freelance jobs, my drifting, the way I never quite fit anywhere. His knee pressed against mine under the bar. It didn't move away but stayed there. There was a look he kept giving me. Not locker room teasing. Not drunken sloppiness. Appraisal. Questioning.
You always look different from the rest of us.
He said at one point, swirling ice in his glass. Different how? I asked.
Just different. The way you walked, your mannerisms, how you laughed.
His voice was deep and low and made the word that followed sound almost obscene.
Delicate Jesse.
He whispered. The air thickened after that. When we stepped outside, the night air hit like a reset button. Cool. Sharp. Clarifying. Let me walk you home, he said. It wasn't a question, and he was a foot taller than me. The walk was quiet, charged. Our shoulders brushed once, twice. The second time, he didn't correct the distance. At my apartment door, he lingered. This is crazy, he muttered, almost to himself. What is? I asked, though my pulse was already racing. He looked at me then. Really looked. Not like an old friend. The kiss wasn't hesitant. It wasn't experimental. It was hungry. His hand cupped the back of my neck and pulled me in with certainty. I felt myself soften instantly, my body responding with a familiarity that startled me. My hands gripped his shirt, not to push him away, but to anchor myself against the rush. Inside, everything blurred. The intensity left me breathless, disoriented. At one point, I remember gripping his shoulders, feeling the solid muscle beneath my palms, thinking absurdly, this is my friend the linebacker. The boy I watched from the bleachers. The man now above me. When it was over, I lay there stunned. My body humming. My mind fractured open. He fell asleep almost instantly, heavy arm draped over my waist. I didn't sleep. I studied the contrast between us. His broad back. My slender frame tucked against him. The way my body curved naturally into the space beneath his arm. In that quiet, a realization crept in slowly, like the dawn. I had been chosen. Morning light spilled across the sheets, unforgiving and clear. He sat up first, rubbing his face, the reality settling in.
This doesn't change anything.
He said, more firmly this time. I nodded. But as he walked me to the door, my legs still slightly unsteady, my skin still buzzing from where he had held me down and lifted me up, I knew something irreversible had happened.
Act 2. He texted 3 days after that first night. You okay?
Such an ordinary message for something that had detonated my life. I stared at it for 10 full minutes before replying. The conversation resumed cautiously at first. Safe topics. Work. The gym. A joke about how bad we'd both been at algebra. But underneath every word was a current. He began sending messages late at night. When the house was quiet. When his wife was asleep. The tone shifted in the dark.
I keep thinking about you, about how you felt, about the way you moved.
The way you moved. I reread that one a few dozen times in the dark. He didn't say what he meant, but I knew. Our texts grew bolder, suggestive without being explicit. He would describe the way my body reacted to him, the way I softened. I found myself responding not as a man, but as a woman indulging a secret. One night, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and searched for lingerie. The word itself made my pulse spike. I wanted something of that softness that felt like it belonged on me. The set I chose was pale rose lace, soft cups, a matching thong, delicate enough to feel intentional but not theatrical. When it arrived, I locked my door before trying it on. Standing in front of the mirror, I expected embarrassment. Instead, I saw potential. The lace framed my hips differently than cotton briefs ever had. The bra lifted and shaped my chest, subtle but transformative. My body looked less like a contradiction and more like a question waiting to be answered. When David texted later that week, asking to come over, I said yes before fear could interfere. I dressed carefully. Lace first, then slim jeans over it, a loose shirt that would slide easily from my shoulders. I shaved more meticulously than usual, moisturized, even dabbed a hint of gloss on my lips before wiping most of it off, just enough to feel different. When he arrived, the energy between us was heavier than before, less accidental, more deliberate. He kissed me the moment the door closed. There was impatience there, but also tension, as if he was battling something internal even as his hands roamed. When his fingers slipped beneath my waistband and encountered lace instead of cotton, he stilled. "What is this?" he murmured, thumb grazing the thin strap at my hip. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain he could feel it. "It makes me feel good," I said quietly. He pulled back enough to look at me. Not angry or amused, studying, thoughtful. His gaze dropped to my chest as he slid my shirt upward. The pale bra came into view, delicate against my skin. The straps traced my shoulders. The cups shaped me into something subtly softer. His jaw tightened.
You've been thinking about this.
"Yes," I replied. The admission hung between us like a spark. For a split second, I feared he would recoil, that this was the line. Instead, his hands returned to my hips, firmer this time. Guiding. Claiming. When he pushed me down onto the bed, there was awareness in the way he positioned me. He didn't treat me like we were fooling around after too many drinks. He treated me like something he needed to possess to keep control of himself. And I responded. My body shifted more easily now into softness now, like second nature. My lower back curved without hesitation. My hips angled back when he gripped them. The lace pressed into my skin, amplifying every touch. I wasn't just beneath him. I was presenting myself to him. At one point, his hand slid along the band of the panties and paused, fingers hooking lightly as if testing how far this transformation would go.
This is who you are now? A girl?
He asked, voice low. Yes, it is. It was the most honest word I had ever spoken. Afterward, when he lay beside me, his hand resting possessively at my waist, I felt altered again, because of how I had shown up. I had stepped towards something I had always circled, always known was there. When he left, I didn't immediately change back into my clothes. I stayed in the lace, let myself sit in the softness, and gathered it around. I walked around my apartment barefoot, feeling the way it shifted against my hips, the way it made me more aware of how I moved, how I stood, how my spine curved naturally when I relaxed. That night, I didn't just feel desired, I felt complete. The next week, I scheduled my hormone consultation.
Act 3. Hormones are magic. They seep into you.
My skin changed first, then my emotions. I cried during commercials. I started caring about my reflection, not with criticism, but curiosity. And then my chest began to ache, but also became way more sensitive. The first time he noticed the difference, he froze mid-touch.
You're growing, and it feels more sensitive for you, doesn't it?
I know.
Is this because of me?
The question hung heavy. No, I said softly. It's because of me. He didn't leave me that night. He stayed with me in the morning. Our weekly meetings continued. Ritualistic, predictable. He would arrive tense from work, from life, from the role he insisted on maintaining. With me, he let the tension bleed out. I began wearing dresses in my apartment even when he wasn't there. He saw them eventually. A soft blue one. A tight black one that made my hips look fuller than they were. You look... He'd start, then stop. Say it, I'd tease. He would grip my waist, large hands spanning easily.
Like trouble.
In public, I tested boundaries cautiously. Light makeup, women's jeans, a purse instead of a backpack. The first stranger who called me ma'am sent me into the bathroom shaking. With David, I stopped pretending I was a man completely. I was a woman unfolding. He still insisted he was straight, and somehow that made sense to both of us.
Final act. By the time he told me he'd left his wife, my reflection no longer startled me.
Hormones had finished their quiet sculpting. My waist curved inward with intention. My hips carried softness that hadn't been there before. My walk a sachet of womanly curves. My breasts, once tender buds beneath his palms, had grown into full, rounded weight. Not exaggerated, not artificial looking, just present, warm and mine. Surgery was not impulsive. It was studied, saved for, wept over. Breast augmentation came first. I remember the weight of them when I woke from anesthesia, heavy in a way that felt symbolic. My chest bandaged, sore, swollen, but undeniably shaped. When the swelling faded weeks later, they settled into natural teardrops that filled my hands when I cupped them. They changed how dresses felt on me, how straps rested, how I stood with my back arched without thinking. The more intimate surgery was quieter in conversation, louder in impact. I will never forget the stillness of the hospital room before they wheeled me in. I touched my lower stomach and whispered goodbye to something that had always felt like an argument. Recovery was brutal and holy at the same time. Pain braided with relief, swelling, stitches. Learning my body through the pain was like new terrain. And then one morning, months later, I stood naked in front of the mirror. There was no foreignness. Between my thighs was softness that matched the woman in my mind. Smooth contours. Sensitivity blooming where inadequacy had once lived. A body that no longer required excuses. I invited David over only after I was fully healed. When he stepped inside my apartment that night, He paused in the doorway like the air had thickened. I wore a silk robe, nothing beneath it. He had seen every version of me. The boy in jeans, the tentative experiment in lace, the budding chest under his curious hands. But this was different.
What's going on?
I let the robe fall open. Not dramatically, just truthfully and simply. His eyes traveled slowly, over my shoulders, down the curve of my breasts, fuller now, unmistakably feminine. Over my waist, the subtle dip into my hips. Lower. He inhaled sharply.
You are Jessica now.
There was no confusion in his expression this time, no recalibration, only awe. He stepped closer like approaching something sacred. His hands hovered before touching, as if asking silent permission. When his palms finally rested against my breasts, they fit, naturally. His thumbs brushed over sensitive peaks that tightened under his touch. I felt a heat coil low in my belly and lower, and thanked God as new sensations bloomed in my heated secret depths. He slid his hand lower, tentative for the first time in our history. The contact was gentle at first, but soon more firm as he saw me react like any other woman. His forehead pressed to mine. "You're beautiful," he said, voice murmured as I felt my knees buckle. That night, when he explored me fully for the first time, there was no ghost of who I used to be between us. I felt like a woman being loved with intention. A woman coming and becoming.
I don't know what this makes me.
He admitted quietly afterwards. I traced circles over his broad chest, over the muscle that once terrified linebackers and dismantled my old life. "It makes you straight," I whispered.